Good day everyone, this is Romel Abordo and today we're going to discuss about the Unit 1 which is the importance of ESL in the Philippine context and historical foundation of English in Philippine education and the bilingual education philosophy and rationale and implication and our learning objectives at the end of the lessons. The student will be able to explain the historical development of English in Philippine education and the rationale of the bilingual education philosophy. Construct a philosophy comparison matrix showing the positive and negative implications of the bilingual education policy on training and learning in the Philippines. So, appreciate the importance of English and Filipino as languages of education, communication, and culturally responsive ESL instruction. And now, let's proceed to the historical foundation of English in Philippine education. So, education refers to the historical development and establishment of English and as a language used for instruction, communication, and learning the Philippine educational system. So particularly through the influence of colonization and educational philosophies. That means that historical foundation of English in Philippine education refers to the history and development of English as a language used in the Philippine educational system. So in a simple term, that it explains how English became an important language for teaching, learning, communication, reading, and writing in Philippine schools. So it was gently influenced by American colonization when English was introduced and promoted in the public school system. So later, different educational policies helped establish and regulate the use of English in Philippine education. So it is about how English started, developed, and became an important part of education in the Philippines because of historical events, colonization, and government education policies. So we have a historical background which is the Spanish period in 1521, 1898, and during the Spanish period, education was mostly controlled by the Catholic Church and Spanish was the official language, but only a few Filipinos had an opportunity to learn. English was not yet part of the school curriculum, but in Spanish period 1521 to 1898, during the Spanish period, education in the Philippines was mainly controlled by the Catholic Church. And then, the main purpose of education was to teach Christianity, religion, reading, and writing. So, Spanish was the official language used by the government and the church. And then, however, as only a small number of Filipinos learned Spanish, especially those who had access for formal education during this time. English was not yet used in Philippine school because the Philippines was still under Spanish rule. English became important in the Philippine education only, so particularly during the American period. Second is American period in 1898 to 1946. So when the American colonized the Philippines, they introduced a public school system in 1901. American teacher called Thomasites arrived and taught in using English. So English became the medium of instruction in school. Then subjects such as science, mathematics, and history were taught in school in English. Because of this, English became widely used in education and communication. So, during the American period, the Americans introduced a public school system in the Philippines. So, one of the biggest changes was the introduction of English as a language of instructions. So in 1901, American teachers known as the Thomasites, right? So arrived in the Philippines. So they taught Filipino students using English and helped establish English as an important language in education, such as what I said earlier, that subjects such as science, mathematics, and history were taught in English. So there na nag-start ang pag-use of English. So because students use English regularly in school, it became more widely used not only in education but also in communication and government. Okay? So next proceed to post-independence period. So after Philippine independence in 1946, English continued to be used in schools, government, business, and higher education. Although Filipino was developed as a national language, English remained important for international communication and academic advancement. So post-independence period, the post-independence period began after the Philippines gained independence in 1946. So even though the country was no longer under American rule, English continued to be widely used in education. As what I said earlier, that education, government, business, and higher education. So the Philippine government also promote sa Filipino as a national language, so that English remained important because it was widely used in academic studies, professional communication, and international communication. Okay? So we have a important of English. English helps Filipino access global knowledge, communication internationally, then use technology, and gain educational and employment opportunities. Then the importance of English is what do you call this one? English is important to Filipino because it provides many opportunities in education, communication, technology, and employment. So accessible knowledge means English helps Filipinos read books, research studies, mga articles, ug mga other pa nga mga information from different nga mga lugar or different countries. Next is communication internationally. So English allows Filipino to communicate with other people from other countries, right? So next is use technology. So many websites, applications, software, and digital resources used in English. So knowing English makes technology easier to understand and use. Gamit jud kayo ang English. So next is gain educational and employment opportunities. So English can help students understand academic materials and can be also to be useful when applying for jobs, especially in companies that communicate with international clients. So for example, we can interact with other people sa lain nga lugar. Okay, now let's proceed to the bilingual education philosophy, which is BEP. Stands for the bilingual education policy. So it is an educational philosophy in the Philippines that uses Filipino and English as the two languages of instructions in school. It was introduced to help students become proficient in both two languages and to prepare for them for national and international communication. So that part, the bilingual education policy, is a policy in Philippine education that promotes the use of two languages, as what I said earlier, Filipino and English, in teaching and learning. So the main goal of this is to help students develop skills in both Filipino and English, because Filipino is important for all those understanding the country's culture. So culture, identity, and communication, while The English is useful for academic learning and communication with people from the other country. So the policy also helps students prepare for national and international communication by learning and using both languages. Students can communicate effectively in different situations. Now, let's proceed to the rationale of the bilingual education policy. So, the BEP was established for several important reasons to strengthen national identity. So, Filipino is used to promote the nationalism, culture, and unity among Filipinos. To prepare learners for global communication, English is important in science, mathematics, technology, business, and international communication. And also to develop proficiency in two languages. So the policy aims to make students effective users of both Filipino and language. Because to improve learning using a language that students understand better can help them learn concept more easily and effectively. So this part, the rationale of the bilingual education policy refers to the reasons why the policy was created and why both Filipino and English are used in Philippine education. Because to strengthen national identity, Filipino helps students appreciate their culture, history, values, and national identity. So it also promotes unity among Filipinos to prepare learners for global communication, and also English helps students to communicate with other people or other countries. And also widely used in science, mathematics, technology, business, international communication to develop proficiency in two languages. So the policy aims to help students become competent and effective users of both Filipino and English. To improve learning using a language that students understand well can make it easier for them to understand sa mga lessons, express their ideas, and participate in classroom activities. Okay, now let's proceed to implication of the bilingual education philosophy. So, the implementation of the BAP has both positive and negative implications. So, let's talk about first the positive implication. Students develop better communication skills in Filipino and English. So, they have greater opportunities for higher education and employment. The national language is preserved and promoted. So, bilingualism was improved thinking, problem solving, and cognitive flexibility. Implication of bilingual education policy means that effects or result of the policy or decision. So, in the case of BAP, it has both positive and negative effects on student, teachers, and the education system. So, we talk about first the positive implication. Better communication skills. Students have the opportunity to develop their ability to communicate in both Filipino and English. Are more opportunities. English proficiency can help students access higher education and a future employment opportunities, especially in fields where English is commonly used, right? So, preservation on the national language, the use of Filipino and in education help promote and preserve Filipino culture, identity, and language. Improve critical thinking. Improve thinking skills. Learning and using two languages may help students develop the flexible thinking and problem-solving skills. Now, so the negative implication, not all students have the same levels of exposure to English. Some learners may struggle in subject taught in English, right? So such as science and mathematics. So teachers need adequate training to teach effectively in two languages. Pwede mo gamit og Cebuano or English. So frequent code switching or Taglish, as what I said earlier, may affect formal language use. So unequal exposure to English. So not all students have the same opportunities to practice English. Some may have more exposure at home, while others may have limited exposure, difficulty in English taught subjects. So students who are less comfortable with English may find subjects like science and mathematics more difficult when lessons and materials are presented in English. Need for teacher training. Teachers need proper training and strategies to effectively teach students using both Filipino and English. Now, code switching, frequent mixing of Filipino and English commonly used, or Taglish. So, next is educational implication for student teachers. So, teachers may an important role in the success of the BEP. So, they should choose the appropriate language based on the lessons and learners. So, give clear explanation in both languages when necessary. Create a learner-centered and inclusive classroom activities. Help also students improve their academic language skills in Filipino and English. So, this part, the educational implication for teachers, refers to the responsibilities and practices that teachers need to consider when implementing the bilingual education policy. So, teachers have an important role in helping students nga makasabot sila effectively using Filipino and English. So, choose the appropriate language. So, teachers should decide whether gamit sila Filipino or English based on the lesson student level of understanding and learning needs. So, give clear expectations in both language when students have difficulty understanding sa mga lessons. Teachers may use both Filipino and English to make the concept clear. Create, learner-centered and inclusive activities. So, teachers make a strategy, should provide activities that encourage participation, cooperation, and active learning while considering the different languages abilities of students. So, improve academic language skills. Teachers should help students develop their ability to read, sa pagsulat nila, sa pag-speak, and pag-understand sa academic Filipino and English. So, that would be our discussion this day, and thank you for listening to our new discussion.